Hello. Good evening. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's time for something weird and experimental. Something I thought up in about a minute and a half, so it could fail spectacularly. Or it might work. Let's see how it goes. Let's set the mood first. How are you guys doing? Personally, I'm pretty good. Spent about the last 6 hours enjoying chatting and working on some projects and just taking a break from all the stress of the holidays. Hello. Hello, hello. What did I get for Christmas? Well, I got very practical things. I did get some money. I also got some cookware because I desperately needed it. I was given very practical things this Christmas. And then my girlfriend's father shows up. And now in the apartment we have a 47-inch TV. Which was not something we asked for, but it was still very gracious nonetheless. I would so totally be trying this, having my computer hooked up to the TV, but I don't have an HDMI cable. And also it's not really my TV. But still like to give it a try. The fattest pigeon. Yes, he's very kind. Very generous. So, I've had a good Christmas. I ate way too much. I actually pushed myself to the point of physical pain that I ate so much. I had nearly 4 meals worth of food, possibly more. So, gonna become a nice fat little owl. So it will be interesting. You all will be streaming on Saturdays. Or at least this Saturday. That's how you do it. I had so much food. Oh, what is this? Oh, Huffington Post, don't you dare ever stop. Hi, Vinny. Yeah, Booty was there. We killed him again, but he'll just come back next year. We'll call it a Christmas miracle. So, why don't we get down to brass tacks? We're gonna try something. And it's not video games, which may be weird, but we'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, we'll never do it again. That's how it is with these experimental things. So I'm gonna post a straw poll in chat, which I know everyone loves straw polls, but I'm just gonna ask you. We're gonna tell a story here, and I'm not gonna be the only one telling the story. I want some participation from you guys. So it should be very weird. And I'm gonna have to think very quickly on my feet. Thanks, Vinny. Take care, man. I'm gonna give you guys 4 very distinct options. And I'll probably ask for a few more pieces of input throughout. So, I have no idea where this is going to go. I came up with all this in about 3 minutes, so let's see if it works. So I'm going to start you off with a poll. I want to ask, who am I? I haven't truly decided if I want to go all out with tons of voices and all that. This is supposed to just be chill. Whenever I do voices, it takes a bit of me or all of me. So, we'll see. But I'd like you to go to that straw poll, and I'd like you to vote for Who Am I? And I've thus titled this story. Here, let's go ahead and take the owl off for a moment. Let's put that there, and we'll get the text out. And the text here, we're gonna call this story. The title will be The Worst Day of a Person's Life. Let's call it that. And it feels like rapping, so just pretend that that's going across the screen. Someone's messaging me on Chatango asking me if I can unban them. I did not ban you. And if you are banned, perhaps you need to, I'm not exactly the person to ask about it. But when I'm done streaming, I'll address it if you haven't found anyone else. No sad things. I'm going to ruin your world if you don't like sad things, because that's one of my favorite things to do, tell sad stories. So, this is the worst day of a person's life, and I'm going to check the results first. Lots of votes for Boris, an unemployed immigrant, which people probably voted for because I made a typo in it. The unemployed immigrant. And I just thought of this, and I need to go do this now, because I don't want to be that person. Since I am streaming on Twitch, I really should pull up a Twitch chat, so that I don't miss out on anyone trying to give input. I'd like Twitch to participate too. So, let me just do that. Unemployed, yeah. Yes, this person is Bazookles. Now, don't tell me, please, man. I'm not going to suddenly cave into talking to you on stream. I'll talk to you later, if necessary. Okay. Oh. Oh, thank you, Shikaku. Thank you kindly. Alright, we'll use that. Gotta shorten up my OBS real quick. There we go. Perfect. So there may be no one chatting in Twitch right now, but we won't worry about it. Edward's looking better. I am reading Twitch chat, yes, Mage Kirby's. So, I will take into account your consideration as well. Forgive me, it's taken a while to get used to having two chats. I don't want Bad Rats, no thank you. I actually have 3 or 4 copies in my inventory that I've not been able to release. So, is this story going to be kinky? I don't know about that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Everyone's got a fetish. Okay. I'm gonna give you about 30 seconds longer and we'll check the straw poll and see who I am. And we'll go from there. I'm just gonna let this music play here. It may end up looping, but it shouldn't loop more than twice. I can prep for any other music another time. Yes, and pick up Dark Souls if you haven't already. $6 is perhaps the best you're gonna see until Dark Souls 2 comes out. If you've ever been interested in it. I thought it was a waste of money at first. I tried it 3 times or so, but by the 4th attempt I socked about 180 hours into it, so I think it's worth it. For those that are just coming in, we are playing a little game. It's called Story Time. And what we're going to do is I'm going to be telling a story and you're going to help me and facilitate me with some things. Oh, of course, Twitch, I'm so sorry. Let me give you the straw poll real quick. I'll give a little longer for Twitch members to enter that. So that's the first... That's the first straw poll. That's who am I? And I think we've got a few people that are starting to come out as clear winners. I'm not terribly familiar with the artists themselves. I have it listed here just as Gonzalez. You can try looking for Gonzalez in YouTube. Look for the titles of songs called Manifesto, or Overnight, or Bermuda Triangle, and you may find the artist there. I'm not too terribly familiar with the first name. Gonzalo? Oh, is that it? Maybe I have it mislabeled on mine. I don't know. Just so you know, ArgP from Vinesauce, I cannot read your text at all. A very, very dark text color. You may wish to change that. I'm reading both chats, Giggle Bombs. Currently reading both. You shouldn't be too terribly difficult since I don't have to technically focus on a game. Alright. Let me check the result. And the winner is... looks to be Boris. Boris, an unemployed immigrant. Okay. Let's see. Going to just take down a couple of things here. I want to be... no, not that. Okay. Excuse me. I'm good, slut. Join the club, Bone of White. Join the club. It's quite a large club, that is. Recent graduate, unemployed. How there are a few other words that so efficiently describe the current generation. Okay. Mix it up a bit, pick someone who wasn't the winner. I don't know how that's how straw poll works, but we're gonna go ahead with Boris. And what we'll do is I'll go ahead and start the story, and we'll just roll it off to a slow pace, and I'll ask you guys in between maybe maybe something that could possibly be interjected into the story. Okay. So this is all off the top of my head. Forgive me if I ramble slightly. I am drinking a little, which means I'll be a little more relaxed and fluid, but it also means I might stumble a bit, so we'll see what's going on. Let's go ahead and change the title up here. Title of the story is The Worst Day of a Person's Life, and we have a name. The name is Boris. And Boris does not have a job. So that's enough to work with for now. Okay. So where to begin? Let's see. Boris, a youngish man of 31 years old, awakens in a very small New York City apartment. The smell of his mattress is quite dank as he's slept the past day and a half away on the small mattress within the bedroom that he shares with his brother, Gary. Boris awakens with an awful headache, and he stumbles off of his mattress, which does not have a frame on it, but is on the floor itself. He blinks both of his eyes and blearily wanders over to the bathroom, only stopping very briefly to notice that he's not wearing any pants. It seems like it's been a long day and a half for Boris. He gets to the bathroom and turns on the light, where the mirror shows him the extent of what may have happened since he had passed out. His right eye is completely bruised, the discoloration of that of a long ripe plum. There are several cuts on Boris's left hand, and he mumbles a bit to himself, struggling with some broken English and Russian, trying to remember exactly what had happened the previous few nights. Thinking to himself, what had happened? Can someone from Twitch chat perhaps give me an idea as to what may have happened to poor Boris right before he lost consciousness? Doesn't have to be anything physical, just the last memory that he possibly had. This is for the Twitch chat. And the Vinesauce can field the next one. Alright. I like that. He remembered that he briefly fought with his brother Gary. And looking up and feeling the tender right eye, he thinks exactly to what extent he had been fighting his brother. But beyond that, he can't recall, not the reason nor the fight itself, but simply that an altercation had taken place. Struggling to recall the last day and a half, he uses the restroom, gets some water, wipes his face off, and quickly takes a shower. The hot water pours down over him as he stands there, resolute, unmoving, just letting the water pour over his forehead as he tries to recall what all had happened. He remembered a party. Some sort of party. A celebration, maybe? We're not sure. Oh, is that not showing? Hold on. Seems as though this is having a difficult time showing all of the text. There we go. Doesn't look that great, but we'll go with it. So, he remembers a party, not quite sure where. Finishing his shower, he steps out, towels off, and pulls on the last pair of clean clothes that he has, lamenting the fact that he probably should have done laundry over a week ago. Oh, goodness. He steps out into the living room / dining room / kitchen, really. Hardly a mark of demarcation there between where the stove starts and where the couch is, that beat-up old leather couch that Gary and Boris had found on the side of a street somewhere. It was made for a first piece of furniture when they came over from their home country and decided to start again on their own. Boris looks around the tiny apartment and realizes that he's alone. Gary must have stepped out somewhere. Maybe for work? He looks to the wall clock, a Felix the Cat clock that has little tiny cat paws for hands. 10:43 in the morning. Well, if he is still working, Boris thought, he would be at work by now. Shrugging, he walks over to the refrigerator and finds the only thing left within the refrigerator that's even worth attempting to eat. Vinesauce, Chet, what did he find in that refrigerator? Opening the refrigerator, he looks upon the top shelf to find that there are just a few containers, a few pieces of Tupperware that he opens up and takes a lengthy sniff and immediately wrinkles his nose, putting them back. Green and fuzzy, they're difficult to identify, but one of them probably was some form of steak at some time. He spots a piece of tin foil covering a plate. As he uncovers it, he sees that there are 2 slices of bacon, anchovy, and onions. Boris's favorite kind of pizza. He bites into one of the slices graciously and thinks about it as he chews. He can't remember the last time he had pizza. Maybe he ordered it before he passed out. Well, if he had ordered the pizza, he would have either had to been with Gary or at home. Because Boris doesn't have a cell phone. Thinking nothing more of it, he calmly and quickly polishes off both slices of the pizza and grabs an old, dirty leather satchel by the door. Decides that he's going to go outside to clear his head and get some air. He takes a step outside of his apartment number 712, and looks down the hallway, left and right. The place is as calm and quiet as can be. Except for perhaps the noisy white neighbor that he has across the hallway. You can hear the television through the walls. Boris swore to God one day that he would go down and just beat that man's door down and take a hammer and crush it straight into the flat screen TV, the big flat screen TV that he saw the movers moving into that apartment. One day, just one day. These wake-ups at 3 in the morning from infomercials were starting to become a bit too much. Boris wonders why he thought of the man as just the white guy. He shrugs that off. Not important. Besides, his headache is starting to hurt. He needs some medicine. He looks into his wallet, and to his surprise, Boris finds $460 in his wallet. Bewildered, Boris can't remember when the last time he had so much money on him, regardless of where it was, or what kind of money it was. Where'd this money come from? Peculiar. He stands there dumbfounded in the hallway as a young woman in her 20s passes down the hallway with a bucket of laundry that she's balancing on one hip. He looks up to catch her form as she passes by and heads into the elevator, and as he feels her eyes come onto him, he looks down for a moment, checking his wallet as a diversion. He hears the bing, bing of the elevator as it closes, and the young woman disappears from view. And he thinks, where did I get all of this money? This is a curious development. He thinks, well, at the very least I can afford some headache medicine. So he takes the stairs, as Boris likes to do. He'd heard too many horror stories of people getting stuck in the elevators, falling to their deaths as the shaft just opens up and the earth swallows the people inside alive. He'd heard many stories about this, read about them, whenever he visited the cafe near his house. On the internet, there seemed to be all sorts of stories flying each in every direction. Boris liked to believe they all had some form of truth. As his footsteps slowly and calmly padded down each stair to the 6th floor, the 5th floor, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, down to the 1st. He looks to the mailbox and thinks, shit, I forgot my keys. And he looks back up to the apartment and thinks, did I lock it? Oh shit. So he quickly runs back up the stairs. 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, 6th floor, 7th floor. By this time, Boris is very out of breath. Not the most athletic person. He pads over to the door and Twitch chat, does he find it locked? Did he accidentally lock himself out of his place? Yes or no? As Boris comes running back down the hallway, he stops, and the door to 712 is wide open. And he thinks, I am so out of it. This headache is awful. Maybe I just forgot to close the door. Thank God I came back up here. He reaches for the keys on a hook right inside the door and pulls them out, only 3 of them. Jingle as he takes them off the hook and slides them into his pocket. He quietly locks the door and closes it. Not thinking too much about it, he jostles the 2 on the door, knowing that the number itself is a bit loose. He then calmly, as best as he can as he tries to recover his breath, walks back down to the 1st floor, taking his time. He's thinking, God, what will today bring? And then a train. I don't know what it is with Twitch chat. They're big on trains right now. Trains and unicorn trains. Oh. It's funny to see which chat latches onto what. Well, either way, Boris gets over to the mailbox and he opens it up, mailbox for 712, and he finds 3 letters inside, all of them addressed to Gary. Well, 2 of them look like junk mail anyway. One is written in an interesting script. It looks flowery, almost. It's quite nice. And he looks at the name from the return address. It just says Cindy right there. No return address, but in the upper left-hand corner it just says Cindy. In fact, one of the I itself is dotted with a heart. He thinks, huh. Gary never said anything about a Cindy. Vinesauce chat. Boris decides to open up the letter from Cindy. In 3 words, what is the letter? It can be something as simple as a love letter. It can be something as strange as an invoice. Just within 3 words. What's the letter? A train, yo. God damn it. They're starting to cross. Oh, god damn it, really, guys? Oh, you're kidding me. You really want that to be? Okay. Okay. He opens up the letter, and inside is a half-page letter that's written in beautiful script on lined paper from a woman named Cindy. He skims the letter itself. He finds pleasantries in the beginning, but written within the body, she mentions that she wants Gary to have this ticket that is enclosed. It's a ticket for the train. And that, anytime he would like, he can just use that and come visit her. As the letter ends, she makes a subtle hint that could be a one-way trip, depending on how much he liked it. She signs it forever yours, Cindy. And the swirl from the Y seems to go every which way on the bottom of the paper, so much so that it actually pisses Boris off a little bit. Closes the letter, crunching it up a bit, thinks, what the hell? So my brother's been seeing a weird woman behind my back? And to top it off, she's offering for him to go visit her, live with her. What is this shit? And inside of the envelope as well is one ticket for the train. Boris takes the ticket and looks at it. And the date to leave is set for tomorrow. Tomorrow in the early morning. 5 a.m. Boris puts the ticket and the letter and the junk mail into his pocket. And he steps out into the cacophony that is New York. The sounds, the smells, the atmosphere, the weather, all of this overtakes him, and he's reminded of the very first moment that he stepped off of the boat, so to speak. Life is so different here in America, he thinks. And he takes a stroll down the sidewalk. and he walks about 5 blocks down to the convenience store where he knows he can purchase a bottle of headache medicine. So, I have a question for you guys. This question involves what happens next. Now keep in mind, before I even started this stream, I created these options, so they may sound a little strange in context, but they could be applicable no matter what. We'll find a way to make them fit. So please go ahead and vote on the straw poll here. What happens next? I've posted it in both Vinesauce and Twitch chat. And I'll post it a second time as well. And I love how Vinesauce immediately went with, "You're a faggot." Right on the letter. Oh, this proves that I can be surprised no matter what. We'll tack on the letter to letter from Cindy. For those that are just joining or have joined and you have absolutely no idea what's going on, this is a little thing that I'm trying called story time. It's a story where I'm crafting a story right off the top of my head, and I'm giving both Vinesauce and Twitch chat the opportunity to add on to it. It's done completely on the fly, and we're going to have 4 sections where we ask a question with a straw poll. So, I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds. I think everyone that has wanted to do it has. And I'll take a look at the results in about 15 seconds. For those that are saying you're enjoying it, I'm glad you are. I'm sure there are probably people that don't enjoy it so much, or maybe just came on and decided video games were more fun. But these are the types of things I like to do. I like to get people involved. Those have been my favorite projects so far at Vinesauce. Everything from the Phoenix Wright VA to the D&D streams. Just all of that. And now. Alright. I'm gonna check. Here we go. The winner is... Well, that can't be right. Oh, straw poll, please. A powerful force of nature has won the vote. Well, okay. Alright, a powerful force of nature. Let's see. Twitch chat is like the sci-fi channel right now. I love it. We've got Sharknado, Train-nado, Bowling-nado, Hulk-nado, Train-nado. Oh my god. Alright. Okay. Boris walks down the sidewalk on a busy New York day. And as he looks up, he sees that thunderheads, clouds, have started to roll in from the west. He thinks, doesn't look like great weather. I didn't bring my raincoat either. Maybe if I hurry, I won't get soaked. So the blocks disappear in thought as he deftly moves between both the vehicular traffic and the traffic on foot of people that jostle him as he moves by. Looks at his old t-shirt, something he got secondhand from a thrift store. The band on it, at least he's pretty sure it's a band. I'm not certain who else would call themselves the Fighting Ninnies. But it's a shirt. His cargo pants are filthy. But can't change that. Well, maybe he can. He thinks about the money in his wallet. The money that he's still not certain that he found, or where he found. The drugstore itself simply has the yellow letters drugstore above its doors, and he walks in and is immediately assaulted by all sorts of different products and colorful sales tags and various treats. He looks around and manages to find the small section that has headache medicine. He picks up a bottle of Excedrin, looks at the price tag, thinks $10. Jeez. That's a lot of money for medicine. Oh well. That hurts. Twitch chat. Boris spies something in the drugstore, catches his eye, and he figures, I might just buy that while I'm here. What does he see in the drugstore? With a plethora of money burning a hole in his pocket, and the item that he wanted in tow, what does he see? I swear to God with your trains. Oh. Okay. So as he's wandering with the Excedrin medicine in hand, he leans over and there's a basket over near the checkout counter. Discounted Christmas candies. On sale, it says. 70% off. Well, who can say no to that? He looks in to see whether or not the only candies left are those shitty little toffees or taffies that are all sorts of disgusting flavors that no one would ever put in their mouth. But he's delighted to see they are about half the size of a Hershey's bar, little chocolates that are shaped like trains. And he says, wow, 30 cents each. I'm gonna have to pick one of these up. Or maybe 3. Or maybe 5. Vinesauce, how many does he buy? overcome with a hunger that he was pretty sure he had subdued from those 2 slices of pizza, he looks down into the basket and can't help but start counting how many are in there. Boris was never that great at math, but he knows it's probably at least 3 to the dollar. And he gets up to the register, and a sad-looking Latina woman, probably in her 40s, the name tag on there that has been written very hastily, Esmeralda. She looks at him. She says, "How can I help you?" Boris sets the Excedrin down. He says, "You said the chocolates here are 30 cents each, right?" She nods her head in a bored fashion and says, "Yes. 30 cents or 5 for $1. And Boris says, "How many do you have?" And that question stops her. She says, "Whatever we have in the basket." And he looks back to the basket. And he looks to her. He says, "I'll take all of them." And he gets a little smile out of her and she says, "Seriously?" He says, "Yeah. Yeah, all of them." And a few minutes subside as Boris picks up the small basket and empties it out onto the counter as they both begin counting the candy bars. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 67 chocolates in all. Oh my goodness. $67 chocolates. She looks at him and says, "That'll be $61.60. And he says, "Don't forget the medicine." She says, "Oh, yes, of course." The total comes out to close to 73 even. Oh, no, wait. I did that wrong. 1360. 1360 plus the other one. This is what I get for trying to do math in my head when I'm trying to tell a story. And then everyone tells me I'm bad at math myself. That's actually truthful. So he peels off a 20. He hands it to her. And he gathers 2 bags worth of chocolates with 1 bottle of medicine thrown inside. And it isn't until he starts to walk away from the register he sees one pissed off looking lanky white guy in his 20s in a leather jacket with weird patches all over them and spiked mohawk blonde hair just leering at him for taking so much time at the register because he's in a fucking hurry. And as he finishes and looks away from this lanky man, he hears that the rain is getting louder. Looking outside, and sure enough, it gets started. Pitter-patter. It looks like it's skipped its drizzling stages and has just begun to go. The rain pours down and Boris thinks, "Shit. Going to get wet. I can't stop that now." So he ties up the bags of chocolate as best as he can and moves out into the rain. I wish I had downloaded that rain sound. That would have helped. Boris walks back along the street, idly heading back toward his apartment. when something terrible happens. Something terrible. Twitch chat, why don't you give me something terrible that happens? And Vinesauce chat, why don't you give me whether or not it happens to Boris? Thank you. I love it. This is great. It's like watching two chats talk about one another. I swear to God, Twitch, if it's trains. Alright. Okay. Sabor steps quickly down the street. It's getting very cold. Very quickly. And he's already soaked. His t-shirt just matted to his skin. His dark, short-cut hair just slopped against his skull as he pads down the street. Seeking cover every once in a while under an overhang, he listens to the thunder rolling. It somewhat reminds him of home. Long days as a young boy, unable to go out in the rain. He remembers just sitting by the window and watching the drops hit, patter. He also remembers the blinding white streaks of lightning that zigged and zagged across the skies. But this is a memory he pushes back out. For Boris has a fear of lightning. Figuring it enough time, he steps back into the rain and walks over to the intersection. He looks up at the light. Still green. Traffic pushes down the street. The random assortment of horns goes off. He sees 3 or 4 people next to him, fidgeting, one of them with their iPod that's strapped to their arm. They look a bit pissed. It's a woman in her 30s, wearing a jogging suit. Looks like the rain had caught up with her before she had finished her exercise. It's not geese, goddammit. And 2 younger, possibly college students, talking quietly to themselves. Boris looks at them for a little bit, thinks what their lives are possibly like, wonders what they're going home to. He looks back across the street. The light for the traffic is now red. The walk sign has turned on. He begins to cross, and he feels a moment in time. A sliver of his existence just pokes out from some existential fabric. Whatever you want to call it, something prods him into being, and all he can think at that moment is, look out. His breath catches in his chest, and his heart jumps straight up into his throat as he feels his body react, while his mind scarcely catches up. He leaps backwards, one of the bags of chocolates splitting open as little tiny trains spill out into the street. He hits the pavement, the wet, nasty, dirty pavement, with a thud, feeling it mostly in his elbow. His right elbow. He looks up. Sounds are coming back. Another horn. This one as if someone had just done an elbow drop onto a steering column. And then a scream. And then another. He lifts his head, gets his hands, pushes himself up, and he sees that the young man that had been walking with the young woman is now laying in the street. A bloody streak stretching out from the bumper of a shiny black BMW, all the way over to the young man's head that lays resting, not moving. The young girl starts shrieking. The owner of the BMW gets out, an older woman, an older white woman in her 50s or 60s, hard to tell, possibly too much plastic around there. Boris never really understood that practice. She gets out and immediately pulls out her shiny, expensive-looking phone as she taps a few buttons and presses it against her face. Passers-by begin to crowd along the sidewalk, as more than half of them begin to take out their own smartphones and point it at the event. Boris looks around and is just outside of himself for a few moments. Traffic seems to continue, even with the accident that has occurred. Cars attempting to swerve around the accident. A few people run out and try to move the young man until another stops them. Tells them that emergency services should move them instead. Then arguments begin. The young woman gets into the old woman's face, even as she's on the phone with the 911 operator. Boris looks about, sees the little train chocolates on the ground. Some of them look like they fell into a sewer grate. They're probably not worth picking up. But fuck it, they were worth money, weren't they? Boris shovels as much as he can of the chocolates that are right next to him into his bag and picks it up and hurries over to the young man. Twitch, does Boris have any medical experience? And Vinesauce, is it gonna matter? They're fine. Twitch is still on trains. I love it. Boris rushes up to where the young man is resting, and an older-looking Italian man with a thick mustache looks at him and says, "Are you a doctor? Can you help this man?" And Boris thickly nods his head, his mind still swimming, says, "I think I can. I was taught basic first aid while I was in the military." The Italian man backs up and says, "Go ahead. I think it'll be minutes before the paramedics arrive. So Boris, he puts his head down, tries to feel for any breath that the young man may have. And thankfully, he feels a little bit of hot air strike his cheek. The boy seems to be alive. How much so is difficult to tell. He follows the blood in the boy's curly brown hair. He looks for the head wound. Finding it, it appears to be a significant road rash right up the side of his skull. Boris shakes his head and thinks, "Don't have much on me right now." And then he thinks, well, at the very least, he takes his shirt off. And the ninny's shirt leaves Boris's body as he tries to rip it up. And use it for a little bit of bandaging. The boy's arm is injured as well as his head. He does his best to wrap that up. Hello, Study. And generally does what he can until he hears the sound of an ambulance pushing, forcing its way through traffic to get over to the scene. As the paramedics park their vehicle in the middle of the street, 3 men get out and they rush over to the boy. They begin asking everyone a flurry of questions. Boris stands back and just lets the scene unfold. One of the men looks over towards Boris as he does so and says, "Did you see what happened?" And Boris nods and says, "I think so." He says, "What did you do here? Did you try to bandage this man up?" And he says, "Yes. I did my best with what I had at hand. All I had was my shirt." And in a snippy voice, the EMT looks at him and says, "What the fuck are you doing? This looks like you just tried to aggravate the wound or whatnot. You idiot. Next time, just wait for us. You filthy fuck." His face red with anger. He looks down and starts to strip away the dirty t-shirt along the boy's arm. Boris feels a bit of anger well up within him. The stretcher quickly comes out. Gurney, whatever you want to call it. Get the young man onto it. It's wheeled up. And the boy leaves the street. And hardly anything else remains in the spot where he was. Not even the blood that had smeared across the asphalt is there anymore. Washed away swiftly by the rain. Boris puts one hand over his forehead, trying to keep the drops out of his eyes as he looks at the scene. One of the EMTs is almost holding the young woman back as she looks to want to strike the older one, who is arguing with a stern expression and folded arms and pointing her finger with cell phone still in tow. More sirens. Police officers. And Boris can't help but just move on. without a word else. He takes his bag of chocolate. One bag now. And he pushes down the street, through the rain, feeling his headache continue to pound with each step. Sooner or later, he reaches the door of his apartment once more. And as he walks in, his eyes look back over to the mailbox. Something is strange. The box to 712 is once more open. In fact, left wide open. Boris says, No, I'm almost positive I closed that. That's weird. So he shuts the door, locks it once more, and begins his trek back up the stairs, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, 6th floor, 7th floor. He walks back down the hallway, his shoes soaked, his socks soaked, that disgusting squishing sound emanating from every footstep down the hall, slightly echoey. He feels like he's just taken another very cold shower. He hears the elevator ding behind him. As he looks past, he sees the young woman come out of the elevator once more, this time with a bin full of folded, clean laundry. And she begins to walk past him. She goes down the hallway. He's seen her a number of times since he's been here. It's only been maybe 3 months. But he's never really talked with her. I should take the chocolates down. Twitch. Does Boris say anything to the woman as she passes by? And Vinesauce, what does he say? Recall that he's never spoken to her before. In a moment of courage, a weird day tends to spawn these sorts of things. Boris lifts his head up, and he watches her form as she walks by. And he calls out to her, and he says, "Hey!" He sees the young woman freeze, and slowly turn around. Long dark hair. Very clear blue eyes. She looks out toward Boris with a puzzled expression. She says, "Yes?" And Boris holds up the large bag of chocolate, double bagged and tied up. He says, "Would you like a chocolate?" And her brow furrows, and she looks down to the bag. Boris's hand dives into the bag, and he pulls one out. A little train-shaped chocolate, red and gold foil across it. And if you read really tiny, it would probably say something like the Cocoa Express. Caesar Godiva, it ain't. She pauses, her head tilting slightly. And Boris is almost ready to say another thing when she nods and says, "Sure." And she takes a few steps toward him and extends her hand, holding the laundry between her hip and her left hand. And he hands her the chocolate, and he smiles and says, "I couldn't resist. They were on sale." And she smiles a little. She says, "Thank you." And there's silence for a few moments. Boris says, have a good day." She nods. She turns around and walks back down the hallway. Boris turns to the door of 712, takes out the big brass key and sticks it into the lock, turns it counterclockwise and opens the door. He walks inside. And he sees another man standing there at the stove. His brother Gary, wearing a green parka and jeans with a shaved head. And being brothers, Boris can already tell, just from his stance and just from knowing Gary, that he's pissed. Oh boy. Boris closes the door behind him, latches it, puts the keys up on the hook. He says, "Gary, how's it going?" Gary doesn't say anything. He just continues to cook, something sizzling on the stovetop from within a pan. Oh, thank you. Boris walks a little closer. He looks into the pan. Looks like some sort of mixed fajitas. Sees tortillas off to the side. When he looks at Gary, Gary, with a thick beard, well-kempt, staring directly at the food, not saying a word. And Boris, well, Vinesauce, what does Boris say to his brother? There are all sorts of things he could ask him at this point. Twitch, what's your favorite kind of train? Not really. But you guys seem to like trains. Freddy does not say what is passport, you ass. It's cool, Fred. Don't even worry about it. Boris looks to his brother and he holds up the sopping bag of chocolates. He opens it up and says, I went down to the drugstore. These are on sale. You want one? And Gary looks up from his food and looks to his brother with a death glare plastered on his face. Holding it there for 3-4 seconds, he turns back to the food. He says, did we get any mail today? And Boris, with bags still open, he looks down and idly thinks, shit, my Excedrin was in the other bag. Damn. Boris looks to his brother and he says, yeah, there was mail. And Gary immediately looks back up to him and he says, what was in it? Boris says, you know, some junk mail. And Gary says, and what? Boris says, and nothing. Nothing, it was just junk mail. Boris says, are you lying to me? Oh, sorry, and Gary says, are you lying to me? And Boris says, no, I would not lie to my brother. We had lots of junk mail in there. I've thrown it away already. Boris holds the stare. He looks down to the bag of chocolate. Then he looks at Boris and says, where's your shirt? Boris says, there was an accident. And Gary says, accident? What kind of accident? And Boris says, well, I went to the drugstore to buy some headache medicine, and it was starting to rain, and I was walking across the street, and a car hit this young man. Gary nods and says, that's what all the honking was about. Could hear it from all the way over here. Boris nods and says, I think he's okay. And they pause for a moment. And outside, the rain continues to grow steadily. A crack of lightning makes Boris nearly take a little hop where he's standing. The sizzle of the food on the stovetop begins to overwhelm the silence in the room. Gary takes a little utensil and calmly stirs it. And Boris says, I'll go put another shirt on. As he turns to leave, Gary says, I know you're lying to me. Boris freezes. He stares down the hallway. Some poster tacked up on the wall of an eagle in flight. his eyes fixated on it, not wanting to look back around to see his brother. Gary says, "I'm gonna find out." And Boris just walks down the hallway, goes into the room, closes the door, opens up the tiny dresser with white and pink trim on it. That was once again a freebie found on the roadside. And he pulls out a beat up white t-shirt. Throws it on his person. Towels the rest of him out. And let's see. One moment. Now we're going to come to our third and penultimate straw poll. We have a lot of variables going on in this story, and I'm going to ask you a third question. The third question is, what might save the day? We're in an awkward moment of this man named Boris's life. We're going to ask a single question, what might save the day? Go ahead and vote for it on the straw poll. I'll give you about a minute. If it sounds like I'm underwater, it's because my roommate is currently drawing water for a shower. Well, the lunch break is good too, Schmegma. If you're not sure what's going on, if this is weirding you out, if you don't like stories, then go watch League of Legends, you fuck. I'm telling a story right now, God. This is story time. It's something weird and experimental, and if it doesn't work, we won't do it again. We're just telling a story. I'm working with what I've got, and you guys are supplying some decisions and interesting tidbits along the way. I'm gonna have one more question for you before the end of our story here, and this is our third one. What might save the day? I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds, and much thanks to Fred for posting the straw poll again in the chat. Fred's my favorite. Except when he uses that Kappa face. Get out of here, Fred. Go watch your Dota. Go play your Dota. I don't need you. About 15 more seconds. Okay, so I'm going to follow my own straw poll here, and I'm going to see what won. And the winner is... results. A lucky break, followed by nothing. I really like the idea that close to, over the 21% of our voters were interested in seeing how the story would progress if there was nothing to stop the forces that have been swirling about this ever since we started. But a lucky break it is. Lucky break indeed. But how? That's the question. The cracks of lightning continue. And the storm picks up intensity as the wind begins to howl. And And the unfortunate thing about all of this is that the window within the brothers' room is a shaky one. So it rattles, and it makes a nasty little noise. As Boris spends the next hour or so thinking over everything. He waits for the moment that Gary will come back into the room. But every minute passes and he just says, it'll happen in another. Just gonna wait here for it. Boris was never the confrontational type. He remembers a schoolyard brawl that had occurred way back when he was a young boy. One of his friends had yanked on a girl's braid. Another boy, having taken offense, had hit him. And then another boy hit the other boy, and everything sort of erupted in the square that they were in. And Boris remembers the severe sense of helplessness, of not being able to do anything, of feeling as though he could not engage it, so to speak. Another crack of lightning brings Boris back to reality. His goose flesh just popping up all over his body. He waits for an hour inside of the little room. And at some point simply says, maybe everything's okay now. And he opens the door. And he walks back out into the living room / dining room / kitchen. And he sees Gary sitting on the couch with an empty plate and an overturned fork. He seems to be reading something. Upon closer inspection, as Boris walks a few feet forward, he notices Gary is reading a magazine. But he's not quite sure what it is. Lots of advertisements of different locales. Large, full-page prints. I think Gary doesn't read that sort of stuff. Hell, Gary barely reads. And Gary looks up from his magazine, closes it, title, Travel, flashing across the cover before he sets it down. Says, I was wondering when you were going to come out of the room. Stop hiding. And Boris stands there and says, is something wrong? And Gary walks over to a thin little coat rack that looks like nothing more than a few bent metal bars on a wall. And he picks up a coat. Thick, heavy black coat. Gary's coat. Boris wishes he had as nice of a coat. Then he remembers the money. Thinks, where did the money come from? Money. Coat, brother, ticket, rain, lightning, hungry, chocolates. He looks over at the bag of chocolates he had forgotten on the counter. And he takes one from the bag and peels it off, foil easily ripping off and showing delicious little chocolate underneath. He bites into it. Feels a little bit of euphoria. come over him. Just a little something nice within a very strange, crappy kind of day. And Gary walks over to Boris a few feet, his hands clasped behind his back, his brow furrowed. The singular light from the inside of the room shining on the top of his shaved head. He says, "Boris, we need to talk." And Boris looks to Gary with his mouth half full of chocolate and says, "Oh? What about?" Gary says, "You're my brother, and I love you. And we came over together from our home country. And you know that there are very few things in this world that I wouldn't do for you. But I have been having some troubles as of late with how you have been." And Boris says, "What?" Gary says, "First off, we've been here for months. I found a job within 2 weeks of being here. You are still unemployed. And you have spent my money. And you have drank yourself into stupors and passed out on the mattress in the back. And that is all you seem to do as of late. Twitch. Does Boris admit to this, or does he make an excuse?" Vinesauce. If he does make an excuse, what is it? It's not true, he also buys tons of chocolate. Boris, choking down the chocolate in his mouth, he says, "Brother, it's not my fault. The train, it is too far from our apartment, and I am unable to go and look for a job here. And as you know, it is so difficult to find one around where we live, and Gary holds up a hand. He says, "I'm tired of this, Boris. I am tired of your lies, and I'm tired of your excuses, and I'm tired of you living off of me. And I am so very tired of all of this. Do you even remember what happened before you passed out?" Boris's heart once more leaps up into his throat. Another bolt of lightning sizzles into the earth somewhere nearby. And Boris can feel himself shaking a little. Fear, trepidation, adrenaline coursing through him, his heartbeat picking up and taking a steady, quick rhythm. Outside it's pouring. Gary takes another step forward. Maybe 2 feet's worth of distance between the brothers now. Gary says, as he takes a thick pointer finger and jabs it into Boris's chest. And he says, I saved you from all of those fuckers outside the bar. We went to go drinking, to go cheer you up. And once more you got shit-faced, and I had to walk you home. And we stumbled across a group of, I don't even know what the fuck they were, bikers? Hooligans? You just had to open your mouth. You got the shit kicked out of you and I had to step in for you. I dragged your ass home. I even bought you that fucking pizza in there. Boris holds up his hand. He says, I only see 2 slices. Shut the fuck up, Gary says. I'm so tired of you. I am tired of you. Now I want to know, where is the mail? And where is my money? And Boris's stomach drops out, falls down to where his ankles are. And Boris says, he don't know. And Boris reaches into his jacket and he pulls out a small handgun and he points it at his brother and says, stop fucking lying to me! And Boris feels one more of those little moments in time that jabs upward. Remembering his time in the military. Firearms. Staring down a man holding a gun out to you. Boris says, brother, calm down. Please. Please put the gun away. He says, no! I am tired of this shit, Boris. Where is my money? Where is the mail? Boris says, I already told you about the mail. The money, I don't have it. And how come you bought all those fucking chocolates? Points the gun over toward the bag, and then back over to his brother. Gary, sorry. I keep using Gary and Boris interchangeably now. Can't do that. Gary pulls the gun. Yeah. And Boris thinks, and he thinks hard. He says, my brother's money, how could I have gotten it? Why is it in my wallet? I can't remember. My roommate was on the phone. That sucked. I have to apologize to her. And Boris slowly reaches into his pocket and he puts his hand around what's inside of it, and I'm going to ask this question next. Both Twitch and Vinesauce. You get the same question this time. He clasps his hand down around his wallet and just pulls out everything that's in that pocket. Was the letter in that same pocket? Go. Was the letter in that same pocket? Boris digs his hand into his pocket. He feels his fingers wrap around his wallet. And he takes it out. And as he pulls the wallet out of view, there's a single letter wrapped around the wallet. And Gary looks at him, the gun changing direction ever so slightly as he points down at the piece of money. He says, "What is that?" And Boris says, just another piece of junk mail, brother. He says, "You said you threw that away." I must have and Gary swipes the wallet and letter out of his hands. And he looks at the wallet. And he looks inside of the wallet and he sees the return address portion on the letter. And what does Boris do? Does he try to run out the door? Does he try to grab the gun? Or does he just stand there and accept what it is? Does he continue to run away? Or does he live up to it? There wasn't a return address, it did just say Cindy on it though. Alright. Boris stands there, and he looks his brother in his eyes, watching the slow dawning of realization on Gary's face. And Gary, with one hand he tries to open up, he looks into the wallet, the wad of 20s. Couple hundreds in there. Sees the letter. Looks inside. And at that moment, Boris reaches out and grabs his brother's arm, grabbing for the inside of the elbow and attempting to control his arm. Gary immediately resists. Drops the wallet and letter to the floor and grabs on toward his brother's neck, hoping to get a chokehold on him. The two brothers begin to wrestle around and they fall backwards onto the couch. The gun is pushing all around. Its aim crossing over to the wall, up onto the ceiling. Boris takes control and tries to whack, 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 trying to hit the gun out of Gary's hand. The gun clatters onto the floor. Gary pulls his arm back and hits Boris again. Oh, hits Boris once, sorry. Hits Boris in his unblackened eye. Boris lets out a groan and topples over onto the floor. Gary reaches down for the gun, but Boris is too quick. He reaches over as well. Both of them grab and lock arms once more. And just as Gary attempts to get up from the couch, Boris leaps up onto his feet and pushes over the couch, pushes over backward onto the cushions. And Boris leaps atop his brother. Yelling, "You fucker! I knew it! I knew it! I'll kill you! I will kill you! I will kill you, Boris!" Boris fights. Fights for his life. On top of Gary, he punches him straight in the jaw once, silencing the hateful rhetoric coming from his brother's mouth. He hits him again. They're still struggling. Another time. And finally Gary goes out cold. Boris, breathing heavily, he gets up. Backs up. His heart is racing. He sees the overturned couch, his knocked out brother, the gun in the corner of the room. Boris reaches over and grabs the chocolates. And then the letter. Twitch chat, does he take the gun? Vinesauce, if he does take the gun, does he do anything with it? Boris walks over to the corner of the room and picks up the small 9mm handgun. Very tiny. An automatic with a very tiny capacity magazine. His hands shaking, he presses the magazine release catch, removes it, and with a trembling thumb pushes each and every bullet off to the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4. As he pushes the 5th one out, he nearly slices his thumb against the magazine holder as another bolt of lightning cuts across the sky. The thunder rolls. He looks down at the torn skin and then keeps pushing them out until the magazine is empty. He opens up the window, the singular window to their apartment, aside from the room, and throws the magazine out the window. He thinks for a moment and tosses the gun as well. He runs into the room, grabs another couple pairs of dirty clothing, his toothbrush from the bathroom. He puts it all into a dark JanSport backpack. It's missing one of the little pull strings from the zipper. And he takes off down the stairs. He runs out the door and into the hallway. Nearly bumps into the nice young woman that had taken one of his chocolates. He dodges around her, mumbles an "I'm sorry," and heads for the stairs. 7th floor, 6th floor, 5th floor. He stumbles, tumbles down the rest of the stairs to the 5th floor. Lands with a thud. Ah! Feels as though he's twisted his ankle. He gets up, tests it. He can walk, maybe hobble. He goes down. 4th floor. 3rd floor. 2nd floor. 1st floor. He gets to the bottom, looking through the entrance to his apartment structure for the 3rd time today. He hefts the bag of chocolates in his hand, feels the crumpled remains of the envelope and the ticket still inside of it. And this is where I ask you your final question. How does the story end? And you only have 2 options. Again, how does the story end? Boris, gone from a shitty day, still with a headache, a bruised right face, a bag of train chocolates. $440-ish now. You want to count change? I'll give you about another minute. The artist is just Gonzalez. He has songs entitled things like Salon Saloon, The Tourist, Gentle Threat, CM Blues, Oregano. I'll give you another 30 seconds, and then we're going to find out how this story ends. Okay. What won? Happiness. Boris steps back out into the rain. His thoughts are completely on his brother. Memories that he's had with his brother growing up. Coming here to America. Of what he might do to him. And Boris takes off down the street. The rain is thick and heavy. Enormous droplets just splattering, soaking everything it touches. Boris continues down the sidewalk. 1 block, 2 block, 3 blocks. He passes by the intersection where the young boy had been hit. And it's as if nothing had ever happened. The area is once more free for traffic. There are no signs of an injured young man, of a slightly dented fender of a BMW, as if it never happened. He goes back, heads into the drugstore. And in the drugstore, he walks back up to the counter. And Esmeralda is still there. She says, "Can I help you?" He says, "Do you sell umbrellas here?" She shakes her head. She says, "No." One of the storefronts down the street might, though. Nods, says, "Thank you." She watches him leave, his bag of chocolates in tow, bouncing against the back of his right leg. And as he continues to walk along the street, passing by alleyways as he does so, casts his eyes down one, sees a group of 5 men just standing around in an alleyway. Clothed in dark hoodies and jackets. Just looking like a group of men having a smoke break. Crowded underneath a tiny little awning outstretched from the wall. The faces all look up and watch Boris. And as their eyes meet, Boris turns back, looks back down the sidewalk, and just keeps walking. Another block down, he spots a tiny department store. And he walks in. Up near the front, it looks as though a rack has been hastily moved over there where they're selling I Heart New York umbrellas. $23.95. He takes one off the rack. And he puts 2 20s down on the counter and says, "Keep the change." The cashier begins to protest, and he walks out into the rain. He rips the price tag off and tosses it onto the street. Takes the little metal portions and pulls the umbrella open. At last, shelter her from the storm. He continues walking. And it isn't a few blocks later before he realizes where he's going. He hadn't been thinking about it. It just sort of happened. Realized, I'm headed to the train station. His feet just kept moving, and he kept walking, and he felt a purpose within him, driving him. It was just as if they had been caught in a race, mind and body, and the mind had just caught up. And the red brake lights of the cars around him, and the horns, and the people with their own large umbrellas cast above their heads, brushing past all of them. Street lamps outside as dusk falls upon the city. Boris takes a look behind him. And he notices a group of 5 men that appear to be following him. And his heart starts to jump. And he feels his pace quicken. His hand starts to move, the umbrella shaking a bit, droplets occasionally splashing down onto his neck. A sorry little man from another world in time, moving down the street like a hunted animal. No jacket, a single umbrella, a backpack, and a bag of chocolates. And the men behind him begin to pick up pace. And so he starts to jog. And he looks behind him. And the men behind him have started to break into a run. And he takes off. And he pushes out of the way. He pushes and runs down the sidewalk. He knocks someone over as he moves past them and ducks down into an alleyway, kicking aside a dirty cardboard box and knocking into a trash can, spilling it over, the contents just spilling out into the alleyway. He runs over and runs, and down the hallway 1,500 feet in front of him, he sees a fence all the way at the end of that alleyway, and he runs for his life. He runs like nothing else has ever been important to him. And as he does so, he casts a glance behind him and sees that the men are running just as quickly, trying to catch up to him, calling out to him, "Hey you, come over here. We just want to talk to you." And he runs. Hey, Twitch chat. Does he trip? Vinesauce. Can he make it over that fence without spilling anything? A single light in the alleyway, a little gated off light at the top of a brick and mortar structure, shines down upon a little piece of metal that's half buried in a small puddle, something that Boris did not see. As his cargo pants catch around this piece of metal, he stumbles, and as he does so, half the bag of chocolates, one handle of it, slips out of his hand, and more chocolates spill into the alleyway. And he steps upon one of them and smashes the chocolate into the pavement, and he can't think about that right now. He just has to go. Who cares? It's just chocolates anyway. Right? And he pulls the other handle of the bag up as he quickly moves along. They're catching up to him. He knows it. He can hear them behind him. We're gonna catch you, motherfucker. I'm gonna get you. Boris runs,
quickly gauges the fence as he comes up to it. He leaps onto a trash can that steps right next to it, and as he leaps over, one portion of the backpack gets caught. And he jumps down, but is somewhat caught. And he pulls, and he pulls, and he pulls. One of the straps of the backpack just snaps. Snaps clean away. The rest of the little remnant of it flapping as Boris leaps over the fence and runs. And as he turns the corner, you can see the train station. Just a few more blocks down. And he runs. He runs like his life depends on it. For whatever reason in that moment, he thinks about it as if his brother was chasing him. He thinks how weird that is. Too much thinking nearly gets him hit as a taxi cab comes to a screeching stop as he runs out into traffic without checking the light. He nearly hops up onto the hood of the car as it comes to a stop. Here's someone screaming from inside of the closed-up taxi as he clears the street and keeps running. He runs straight into the station. And he runs up to the counter. And he says, out of breath, What's the nearest train? The soonest train that's leaving this place right now. And the person at the ticket counter is a little taken aback. She looks him up and down. A dirty man who looks bewildered, as if he were just running from his own doom. And she says, there's one leaving in 10 minutes. And he slams $80 onto the counter. He says, I'll take a ticket. And he looks down into the letter where the other one was. He looks up at the times. Sees that it's for tomorrow. And as he takes the new ticket with him, he tears up the letter. Tears up Cindy's ticket, tosses it into the garbage can. And he runs past the turnstile, into the station, and he finds a bathroom, and he ducks into it. He gets into the bathroom, comes up to one of the sinks in the mirror, and he just stares. It looks like hell. The bruise looks like it's not really healing that well. In fact, it looks a bit swollen. You can feel the nastiness on his skin. And for the life of him, he can't slow his mind down enough to keep his thoughts from just running away from him. So, he gets into a stall, and he locks the door. And he steps up onto the seat. And he leans upward, stretching just enough so that he could see over the stall walls. Over on the wall where a digital clock has been installed. Its red numbers flickering, 7 minutes until the train leaves. Not 2 minutes later. The bathroom door bursts open. The sound of at least 2 sets of feet stomp in. Maybe boots of some kind. They sound very loud. Boris clutches the bag to his chest as tightly as he can, fearful of the plastic giving him away. He crouches on the toilet seat. He hears the doors of stalls being slammed and opened. The sound of someone shuffling down underneath on the floor, on the tile, on the dirty, dirty train station tile, looking underneath the stalls, looking for feet. He holds his breath. And it feels like a lifetime passes. And here's the word, fuck. And a set of feet leave the bathroom just as quickly as they came. As the door slams shut, noiselessly he lets a breath of air go, exhaling. He stretches upward. The clock says 2 minutes. Shakily gets down off of the bathroom seat, the toilet seat. Unlocks the stall, opens it. Cliffhanger. I'll be right back. Boris opens the door to the bathroom slowly, looks outside, sees 2 hooded men outside of the bathroom and a train that's parked there, people crowding onto it, several attendants helping people on, getting their luggage aboard. And he looks, he stares at the train, and he steadies himself. 1, 2, 3. And he bursts the door open. And he runs. And with the broken strap of his backpack, he wheels up and brings it crashing down onto one of the hooded guys' heads as he runs by. Clocks him clean to the ground as he jumps down a flight of shallow stairs and then a second flight. Hops over a bench, runs past some foliage that's been planted there at the train station, leaps over and runs onto the train. He bolts inside, blitzing past one of the attendants, who immediately follows him in. Sir, 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 where's your ticket? Boris quickly, clenching it in his fist, holds it up for him. The attendant looks at it, takes it, rips it, and he rushes back 1 car, and he gets into a seat, hides underneath it, and is overcome with emotion. He feels his throat start to choke up. Thinking about the day that's passed. And he curls himself up in a ball underneath his seat.
And he waits there. He waits for whatever is to come. And he feels the train start up. And then the shift of it starting up. And then motion. And he begins to leave the station. Boris, his eyes clenched shut. Fear still racking his body. Here's the voice of a young child. Hey, mister. What are you doing? He opens one of his eyes. He looks up. Sees a little boy. With half his body just over one of the heads of the seats. Balancing on it. Leaning over to look at Boris's hunched little form. He says, "What are you doing?" Boris opens his other eye and looks about. He feels the smooth motion of the train. And people that are just sitting all around, reading the paper, doing some puzzles. And he gets up out of his huddled ball. He says, "Nothing. I was just hiding." Hiding, he thinks. It's a weird word. The child picks up on it. Hiding from what? He says, Before Boris can finish the sentence, the young boy looks down at the bag and says, "Chocolates. Can I have one?" Boris takes a seat. Here's the rain outside of the train car. He says, "Sure." Takes one of the chocolates. Gives it to the little boy. And the boy says, "Thanks." And he pops back over his seat. Then Boris was alone. As the train slowly pulled him along to whatever destination he was headed to. A bag of chocolates, some money, and almost nothing else left in his life. Boris thinks, well, I don't know where I'm going. But maybe when I get there, I can start over. Happy stories are rarely happy sometimes. Hey, sweetie. Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, for just 1 second. Does happy mean not dead? Does happy mean everything works out well? I don't know. Your interpretation. In any case, this was a fun little experiment. I know there were points where it kind of sagged, the story did, but that's what happens when you tell one that's on the fly. It's rare that you can get that steady pressure that comes with a fantastic story. You often have to inject it sometimes. In any case, what do you guys think? Was it fun? I'm sure we have a few naysayers.
That was pretty depressing, but good. I'm sorry. It's my personal kind of slant on things. I like some depressing stuff. You liked? Interesting. More trains next time? Okay. Could have been less depressing. We'll try for a less depressing one. This one's called the worst day of a person's life, so it's I think it fit what we were going for, but maybe we'll try a better one next time. That's fair enough. Alright. Well, I unfortunately do not have any time for Super Mario RPG. I have family over, and I really shouldn't be ignoring them anymore. But I promise next time that we will do some Super Mario RPG. And yes, we will finish Pirates at some point. So I'm glad I got to do a little experiment with you. You know, maybe we'll do it again sometime. Sound good? We'll just leave it at that. You guys have a great evening, and I will see you later, okay? Take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye-bye. And then Boris was a train.